Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today we're skipping the usual fluff to look at a truly pivotal moment for India's youth. A moment where the overwhelming anxiety of literally millions of students suddenly crystallized into a highly organized call for educational reform. We're going to unpack exactly what went down in July 2026, why it happened, and what it actually means for the world's largest democracy. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. What actually happens when millions of students completely lose faith in their future? It's a heavy question, right? But it's exactly the one we need to ask to really grasp the gravity of the situation. I mean, think about the sheer universal anxiety of academic stress, the years of nonstop prep, the late-night studying, the massive sacrifices made by entire families. Now imagine all of that just hanging by a thread because the exams themselves are compromised. When you start questioning the integrity of national-level competitive exams, you're not just looking at a bad test score, you're literally threatening the professional and academic dreams of an entire generation. That profound loss of faith, that's the exact spark that ignited the events we are exploring today.
Section 1. A Democratic Protest Hub.
The contrast here is honestly fascinating. We're talking about Jantar, which is located right in the heart of New Delhi. Originally, this was built as an 18th century astronomical observatory, mapping the stars. But over the years, its identity has totally shifted. It's transformed into one of India's most iconic spaces for peaceful public demonstrations. It's essentially a place where citizens from everywhere, farmers, government workers, activists, women, retired folks, have historically gathered to express their concerns and demand justice. Because of that incredibly rich history, Jantar isn't just a physical spot on a map anymore. It's a living, breathing symbol of democratic participation.
Section 2. The July 2026 Exam Crisis.
Now, what's really interesting about this specific quote is the profound human element it captures. Years of hard work should not be affected by mistakes or misconduct in the conduct of examinations. In July 2026, Jantar became the absolute center of national attention when youth organizations and massive crowds of students started assembling there. These protests were driven by a deep-seated, growing panic over the future of millions of students. They were out there raising slogans, carrying placards, and making a direct appeal to the government. Their argument was incredibly straightforward. The immense effort and the literally years of hard work they've poured in simply shouldn't be derailed just because of administrative mistakes or misconduct.
So what exactly were they protesting? Well, the grievances were super specific. The main catalysts were widespread allegations of irregularities in national-level exams, most notably some highly disruptive paper leak controversies. But it wasn't just about the exams themselves. The students were also pointing to chronic delays in the testing schedule, which in turn delayed the entire recruitment process. And you can imagine, those delays create a massive amount of stress. When your academic and professional timeline keeps getting pushed back over and over, trying to plan your life becomes nearly impossible.
Section 3. The Students' Core Demands.
Their roadmap for a solution was actually very clear. First off, they demanded stronger security measures to absolutely prevent any future paper leaks. They also wanted much quicker, way more efficient investigations into the irregularities that had already happened, along with stricter punishments for anyone caught engaging in malpractice. But they also zoomed out a bit, calling for systemic education reforms to really restore public confidence in the whole system. And finally, they hammered home the ultimate end goal for these students, the desperate need for timely recruitment exams and increased employment opportunities. At the end of the day, they just wanted transparency, fairness, and true accountability.
Now, what is particularly striking about this whole crisis is exactly how the demonstrations played out. Despite the incredibly high stakes for these young people, the protests remained totally peaceful. The participants gathered in a highly organized manner, and they strictly followed the instructions issued by the authorities. Police personnel were deployed to maintain law and order, ensuring things stayed nonviolent. Representatives from various student organizations got up on stage to address the crowds, and media organizations provided massive coverage, which really helped amplify the voices of these students to audiences all across the country.
Section 4. Government Assurances and Action.
So, how did the government respond? Well, it was highly procedural. First, officials stepped forward to assure the public that examination security would indeed be strengthened. Second, they confirmed that active investigations into the reported irregularities were already underway, and they promised appropriate action against anyone responsible. And third, and this is perhaps the most significant part for long-term change, the issue was actually elevated to the legislative level. During the monsoon session of Parliament, lawmakers actively debated examination reforms, youth employment, and specific measures to strengthen these really vital public institutions.
Section 5. The Voice of India's Youth.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what makes an event like this possible. The Constitution of India formally guarantees its citizens the right to freedom of speech and expression, as well as the right to assemble peacefully. Now, obviously, this is subject to reasonable restrictions, meaning protesters are expected to respect the law, maintain public order, and keep things nonviolent, which, as we just saw, these students absolutely did. Peaceful protests like this are literally a vital democratic tool. They give people a way to shine a spotlight on public issues and force a direct dialogue between the citizens and their government.
Ultimately, these events perfectly capture the core aspirations of India's young population. Students across the country are desperately seeking an education system that is genuinely transparent, strictly merit-based, and completely free from unfair practices. They expect equal opportunities, efficient administration, and, immediate action when things do go wrong. By actively participating in these peaceful democratic processes, the youth showed a profound willingness to constructively shape their nation's future. They aren't just sitting back and complaining. They are actively engaging in the democratic process to build a better system from the ground up.
Which brings us to our final thought. This protest at Jantar Mantar was so much more than just a public demonstration. It was a pure, unfiltered expression of the hopes and concerns of an entire generation. It made it crystal clear that fairness in education and accountability in governance are simply non-negotiable for the youth. As India continues its massive journey of development, this kind of constructive dialogue between citizens and the government is going to be absolutely essential for building stronger, more resilient institutions. So I'll leave you with this question to ponder. As India continues to develop, how will it balance institutional accountability with the passionate activism of its youth? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions and keep learning.